Now, just without wasting our time, I am going to invite Dr. Pulkit Pandey, who is third-year resident doctor on People College of Medical Science and Research Center in Bhopal. Pulkit, please introduce our esteemed speaker today.
Sure, sir. Very good evening to all my seniors. Warm welcome to all the participants and hello to all my colleagues. I, Dr. Pulkit Pandey, a third-year resident from People's College of Medical Sciences, Bhopal, am honored to introduce you to our prestigious faculty member for the next upskill lecture on the topic of how to present a case conference. She is a senior member of IPS since last 24 years, professor and HOD of Department of Psychiatry in Siddharth Medical College, and a consultant psychiatrist in Puja Psychiatric Center, Vijayawada, Andhra Pradesh, who did her MD in Psychiatry from Sri Venkateshwara Medical College. Let me just share the slide. From Sri Venkateshwara Medical College, Tirupati in 1997, is an international member of APA since 2004, WPA member since 2009, past secretary and currently the president of IPS, Vijayawada chapter, forum advisor in Bharat Mahila Mandal, and Women Empowerment Committee chairman IPS South Zone. She has been the principal investigator in 2 global and 8 national clinical researches on schizophrenia and one national research on dementia. So please welcome Dr. V. Radhika Reddy, ma'am.
Yes, madam. With your permission, may I share the poll question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
so,
you can. Please.
Participant, I am inviting one poll question. You just submit your answer. It is multiple kind of question like thing.
Okay.
People are still answering, madam.
Okay.
I will wait for 20 seconds more. I'm ending poll now. So results are here. There are very wide variation. Group dynamic has received 32% answer, psychodynamics maximum 50%, and psychoanalysis 21%. So with this, madam, I would like to invite you to proceed for your lecture.
Sure. Thank you very much, Chintan. And I thank Dr. Pandey for a nice introduction. Good evening, all my dear students. So let us discuss today about the group. As a group, it is a learning process for all of us about the case conference, how to present it, and how to deal with all those things. And as a student in our learning process, each and every one, and as a PG, one should definitely do a case conference, and even multiple times. You may not get the chance when the group of PGs are more, but still each and every student has to do it once in a while so that you learn a lot. So the usual procedure in psychiatry is like as usual, like in the rest of the medicine, the case conference mainly deals with like in any other specialty, whatever we do, the same thing lies in psychiatry also. But this group case conference is very much required in psychiatry, and it is derived from once the general hospital setups has started, then they have derived this concept from that general hospital psychiatry. And it's the most useful tool, as you believe. And next slide, 1 minute. I'll just share the next slide. So we will be going through the introduction of the topic and what we expect from a student in a case conference, and what the student has to, and the aims and goals of the case conferences, how the process goes on, and what are the opportunities you get in this, and what are the skills you require to get into this, and also the influence of culture, and who has to focus, like first year, second year, what you have to exactly focus upon, and is the language a barrier, and what are the preparation skills you require, and some little bit about our own self and our anxiety and the group anxiety, and what is the proposed format for this, and also the problems in this case conferences. So all these things we will be dealing with today. So like any other, the case conference is a teaching model. So I have gone through so many definitions for this, but I thought this is a definition which fits all the requirements for a case conference. So the case conference is a teaching model which has the functions of educating the staff at all the levels, and also facilitating the better understanding of the particular case which is under discussion. Most often it is a face-to-face discussion, and it should be highly interactive session, and it's a way of teaching, and it's a way of learning, not only for the students and also for all the participants. Sometimes the participants can be a multidisciplinary team also. So it's a form of study in which at one time or other, each and every participant serves as a perceptor, means it serves as a student as well. So to study not only the patient under the consideration, but also our own reactions. We will be studying our own reaction in relation to with the other participants. So that is the main, that is the reason I gave you the question in the beginning. So it is not only dealing with the psychodynamics, it also deals with the group dynamics. So it's highly interactive and a dynamic learning. So who will be present? So it's a presenter, either it can be a staff or a student, and the faculty will be there, and multidisciplinary team and all the members will be there. And it is not a didactic teaching. So in a case presentation, what will happen when you are presenting a case? Your professor or one of the faculty will be there, and we will be presenting the case. And as a formal remarks at the end of the case presentation, the professor will give certain remarks, and rest of the students or other staff will just be a silent, passive listeners in a case in a case presentation. But in a case conference, everybody should participate, and it should be a dynamic experience and a living experience. Everybody should participate and take the conference to a highly intellectual experience. In that way, it is different from all other teaching tools. So what is the expectation in this? So we audit or we can assess the quality of education to all the members of different disciplines. We can just assess in this case conferences. And we can also increase the knowledge and skills of all the participants in treating the patients. And we can have a treatment plan in this. We can suggest about or come to a conclusion about the medication that has to be given to the patient. And sometimes it can be a success story also. Like a presenter who is following the patient from a quite period, and regarding, it can be regarding the diagnosis or the management plan or the treatment success. So that kind of success story also you can share in a case conference. So to cut the barriers between the student and the staff and all other disciplinary members also, we can use this. In some institutes, they have a habit of having an academy, like all the other specialties also meet in a case conference sometimes. So to develop rapport with the other faculty members and the other students, and also to exchange the views also, these case conferences are very much useful. So what is the aim in underlying the case conferences? Mainly to improve the quality of education. And a student can also have improvement in their presentation skills. So you can have the teaching on presentation skills can be there, and we can promote group discussions, and we can have the content appealing by repeatedly doing these case conferences. So the content can be made appealing to wider audiences, and we can have a we can as well enhance the personal and professional confidence. So that is the main aim under this. And coming to the goal, final goal is like coming to an agreement. So in a case conference, you know, when you are doing a case conference for 2 hours, 3 hours, sometimes it will end up only discussing about the phenomenology. Sometimes it may end up at the diagnosis level. The members may not come to a conclusion about the diagnosis. Sometimes they may not come to conclusion about the treatment aspect. So like that, coming to a conclusion is also the main goal of a case conference. So in a psychiatry hospital, in a psychiatry teaching, the case conference you have to observe in 3 different angles. So the first thing is, when you, for which case you will do a case conference, why it has to be held. It is mainly for sometimes like a diagnostic difficulty. So especially if the case, if there is any problem with the diagnosis, sometimes it can be for phenomenology also at a PG level, and sometimes can be a management. So the first aim is from the student side, a diagnostic difficulty or a management issue. And secondly, it is for the patient. So the patient in a small group meeting, so the needs of the case, needs of that particular case under consider can be better discussed and made it as better studied. And thirdly, it is the effect of the setting can also be determined, which deserves attention. So what is the process in a case conference? What exactly you have to do in a case conference? So the first thing is we have to selection of the case and noting the patient history and details. And I will be later on, I will give you the format how to exactly do that. But the main process is we have to collect the history and details of the patient and what else is required for that particular patient. So is there any diagnostic difficulty? And then what are the other care needs that are required for the patient? And then among all the members, what are the outcomes? If it is discussed already, or if it is already treated by all the multidisciplinary. So what are the outcomes that has been achieved by all the members? And you have to identify the tasks that has to be achieved, and we will allocate the tasks to other members. So like if the patient requires some psychotherapy, you will be giving that to the psychologist or clinical psychologist. If there is some social work has to be done, and family members has to be dealt with, you will be giving that job for the social worker, like that. So this is the main process and aim and goal. Like we'll take all the details and then we will be distributing each and everything, and we will be getting back the results. So coming to the duration. So how many hours one case conference is to be held? So average, they say it can be from 1.5 to 2.5 hours, at least 2 to 2.5 hours. So if it is more than that, again, it becomes a boring session. And if it is less, again, you cannot have a detailed discussion. And how many number of participants can be it should be a small group actually. It can be between 5 to 12 members, not more than that. So less number will not be, you will again doesn't have a good discussion. If members are more, again, they may not get the chance to participate properly. So that's the reason you should have a small group. And what is required is all the students who are participating. So all the members who are participating should read about that particular case and should not particular topic in the preceding week. That is very, very important. And when it is a prior discussion with the chairperson is also required. The presenter, the student who is going to present the case conference should have a dialogue with the leader of the case conference. So that is very much required. And that will help also actually. And then who will participate? So residents, so all the residents, either first year or second year, usually what we say better to the second year and third year students are can be a good participants actually instead of the first year students. So a brief introduction, when it is a first meeting, you better have a brief introduction of all the members who are participating to just ease out the start of the conference. We better have an introduction. And sometimes it depends on the institute also, the tradition of the institute also sometimes works. And how many times you can meet, it also depends on the institute. And most often it is once in a month or sometimes once in a week also. And coming to the chairperson plays very, very important role in a case conference. So I will be discussing, telling you about that also. So who are the attendees? So particularly in a psychiatric institute or a hospital, attendees can be consultant psychiatrists, psychiatric trainees, nurses, psychologists, psychotherapists, occupational therapists, social workers, and pastoral care staff. So behavior therapists like that. All the auxiliary team can also participate in the case conference. So what is the role of a presenter? So a student, its roles. So one thing is like, so a concept called as reflection on action. So what is that? So a student who is going to take up the case and take details of all that particular case. So before presenting, he will be interviewing the patient and he will be gathering all the information regarding this case. And then he will be putting up all the differential diagnosis. And he may note that sometimes some particular information is again necessary. So he will go back and then again interview the case and then I will get back. So this kind of reflection, when you are accumulating and analyzing the data regarding a particular case, so you require some other information, more information, and that strikes you in your mind. So that is called as reflection. And this is very much useful in this when you are presenting cases. So the process, when you are doing it next time, definitely that will help you. So this is a mode of learning. So reflective process is required. And I just want to give you some models of learning also here, just to enlighten you. So communication between the members of this team before the case conference is required. And you should also know how to draw attention of the patient and also the members, how to pronounce it clearly, certain words, and the communication, the eye-to-eye contact, the body language, and avoidance of certain jargons, and the speed of your speech. All these need to be practiced while presenting a conference. So with a collection of data, we can have a concept called as experiential learning. So this is called experiential. Why? Because so whenever you are seeing a case, whenever you are interviewing a patient, so prior to that, you will have a plan. So what are the questions that you have to ask, and what are the details you have to take? So what lines the case could be? This kind of planning will be there. So for a student, and then with this plan, you will have that experience. Means you will be interviewing the patient. So once you interview, so then you will get the preparation. That is called reflection. Like you prepare the case. and whatever information that is again required, you will be collecting once again. And then you will get the feedback from the perceptor or the student. That is the theory part. So this is called as experiential learning. So for a case presentation, you require that. And similarly, preparing this case for the case conference also, you require this kind of feedback. And this is again another model for information gathering and problem representation. So the similarly, almost it's similar, but there should be a clinical reasoning process should be there. So you will be knowing who the patient is and what is the situation and the characteristics prior to the, there is some prior knowledge about the case, and then you will accumulate all the data. So that is problem representation, and you will evaluate it, and the action, whatever treatment is required, that is required. And you will also gather some information which is required for the, while you are evaluating, again, you will inform some information you will be gathering. So the context in particular, and then that will contribute again to the problem representation. So these are the models of learning which has to be used in particularly when you are presenting a case in a case conference. These are the learning models. So what could be the role of a chairperson? Chairperson role, again, it's not a simple task holding a chair in a case conference. So they have to work consistently, and what is the case that has to be discussed, they should have a clear-cut explanation, and the extent and the type of experience of the group is the main responsibility of the chairperson. And finally, he will sum up or he or she may sum up all the discussion and then adjourn the meeting. But the level of discussion usually to bring the best of all the participants becomes the responsibility of the chair. So some may be too ahead, it should not be too ahead, or it should not be too far behind. So some well-experienced members will be there, and too immature members like first-year students can also be there in a case conference. So that is the reason. So the group leader will be maintaining a balance between these two. But his responsibility, this discussion should be an intellectual discussion, and it should be a little ahead level only, not at the base level, so that everybody can learn. And there is he has to take care of the emotional climate of the conference as well. So that is also very, very important, because whenever we talk to the students, case conference means they become more anxious, because they think that usually their experience will be like, so everybody will be bombarding them with a lot of questions. So they student in their mind, they may usually what they think is like they become more anxious, and then they think they are just bombarded without, so they could not answer. So it is not like a question answer session. It is only to exchange the knowledge and enlighten the people and come to a conclusion. So sometimes that is the reason we ask to introduce with each and every member to relax, become more relaxed, and it should not be more formal meeting. That is one thing which everybody should keep in mind. And the chairperson also, his responsibility is he can diagnose who are the students whom has to be improved, and also care about their learning environment, and also proper action plan and managing the case in a multi-directional manner. So that is how the chairperson works here. So what are the opportunities you get in a case while doing case conferences? So you are exposed to various types of cases. So it can be psychotic psychosis, or anything, or a licensed psychiatry, or in a medical case which has a neurological case having some psychological disturbance, right? So you are exposed to all varieties of cases, and you will be exposed to even working in groups and working with families, working with children, because when you are working on a case for a particular case conference, you will be digging a lot of information from all the available attenders of that particular patient. And in emergency settings, how to work, you will be get exposed. So various settings will be exposed. And one more thing is influence of culture. So cultural, trans-cultural things are also, you will get an exposure. So in a culture, particularly, culture can influence a lot of things. So culture can influence the presentation of illness, and it can also influence the decision of the patient, whom to consult and where to take care, seek help, and what is the information that he or she can share with the doctor can also be influenced by culture. And also sometimes due to that the cultural aspect, they may not accept certain things in a treatment planning, and sometimes they may not participate also. So the cultural influences are many, and that also one has to keep in mind while questioning or while doing a case conference. And language is one more thing. So language sometimes can become a barrier. So patients with or a student, both are speaking the same mother tongue. The case information collection is very easy. And there will be some difference in information when a student, while talking to the patient, or a faculty member talking to the patient and getting the information also, totally the information becomes changed. So there are certain psychological benefits from the patient side when the language is the same. So we have to rely most often on the self-report of the patient. So that is the problem in the psychiatry. So some people have the habit of interviewing there itself. Like in a case conference, sometimes the patient may be present or sometimes may not be present. So when the patient is there, usually when we are discussing the phenomenology, sometimes the staff members again interview the patient, and whatever information we as a student got, it totally differs when one of the senior member interviews the patient. So these kind of problems will be there, and we have to overcome all those in presenting a case. And what we require as a student for presenting a case conference. So first thing is interviewing skills. So you require good interviewing skills. So interviewing is not it is both an art and also a science. So you will not have these type of skills written in any textbooks. So the main aim of basic training, psychiatric training, is to develop good interviewing skills. So to establish good therapeutic alliance with the patient, the interview at the first sight. So good interview skills are required. And what we have to do, you as a student, you better follow the format. You keep the format with you, and accordingly you start asking the questions and then start the interview. This kind of systematic learning will definitely help you. And I emphasize always on human relations. So importance of human relations in the professional practice. So with these case conferences, each and every student will learn how to maintain these human relations, and which will help you in your practice definitely. So the case conference works mainly on these relationships also. So that between the students and between the student and the staff, and also among all the other team members. So these relationships are central for the successful development of professional identity. So we need to concentrate on that also, not only taking the history and phenomenology, you need to concentrate on this aspect also in presenting a case conference. So you learn many things through this, but the most important things I just summarized. So you will be knowing the multicultural diversity of assessment and diagnosis, and you will be knowing diagnosing the patients without over pathologizing them, and how to handle the certain things like related to safety, like suicidality, homicidality, self-harm, all these things, and also confidentiality. when to break the silence, and what are the pros and cons of self-disclosure and experience of team building. So these kind of things you need to concentrate upon, and you will be learning all this when you are doing case conferences. So now we'll come to the format, how to present a case conference. So there are one thing like the order of presentation. What is the order you are supposed to follow? And there is a little explanation about the summary and formulation. So the order of presentation. So for a case presentation, you will be doing all these things. Similarly here also, but all the things are compiled very briefly. But the order of, when you are writing a case, you have certain things like there is an ideal format. An elaborative, detailed, ideal format is there, which can be many pages like that. So you will be taking all the history of present illness in a detailed manner. But while presenting, you will summarize that and you will make it a concise thing. So you will be noting all the things like chief complaints, past history, family history, personal history, pre-morbid history, all the things for the pre-morbid personality. So with all these important aspects, important features, which decide the diagnosis. So positive features of a particular diagnosis or sometimes certain negative features which are not in favor of the diagnosis. You need to highlight most of them. So like that. And then you will summarize all the psychological symptoms which the patient is experiencing. And you will be summarize all the medical and lab findings, all psychological tests, all the neurological test results, everything. So clarity in the thinking, clarity of thinking is reflected in the clarity of writing. So what you write, it is very clear in your mind, then you can write a summary very clearly. So you need to diagnose the case, and the diagnostic classification has to be mentioned like ICD-10 or DSM-5. And in particular, in this kind of special case conferences, you may have to diagnose under both. Like you can present both the DSM-5 and the ICD-10. Then you coming to the differential diagnosis. What are the differential diagnoses are in your mind, you can tell. And what are the negative symptoms and the positive features for both. And the prognosis, what are the positive and negative aspects of the, which can give rise to the prognosis, you can discuss. And the psychodynamic formulation in a brief. So psychodynamic, in that the causes of patient breakdown can be expressed, the influences of the patient's life which has contributed to this present disorder. Any environmental factors, you can highlight any genetic factors, are there any personality factors, all these things you need to note. Any primary gain or any major defense mechanisms, all these things you can note it down. And then comes the treatment plan. In the treatment, what are the role of medication, whether you want to give an inpatient treatment, outpatient treatment, how many sessions are required, what are the timelines you are expecting, talking to the family, what you have to mention to the family, and what are the immediate concerns, like any safety issues are there, any risk of life is there. These therapeutic team approach, what else you want to discuss, like any psychologists or social worker, nurses, all these self-help groups, like sometimes if there is a substance abuse case, you want me to attach a self-help group. Like that, all the treatment plan and the therapeutic team approach you can present. So I just want to put a word about this. There is a lot of confusion always regarding the summary and formulation. There are many terms used even for your exam, like a case summary, case formulation, diagnostic summary, diagnostic formulation, like that. But so it should be very clear in your mind. Summary is always a description and formulation is an analytical one. So in a summary, all important aspects of the case are discussed, and then a summary is mainly for lay people. Like even the lay person can understand what is the case. So in that way, the summary is written, and it is a very short one. Like if you read out, it takes around 10 minutes. So while presenting a case conference, you should have all the detailed ideal format of the case, but with permission of the time. So you can, as you should be ready to present either summary or a formulation depending on the group. So while coming to the formulation, it is a clinical opinion and it is a more intelligent one compared to summary, analytical one. And you can as well differentiate what are the incidental findings and what are the circumstantial findings, and you delete certain things. And it is a discriminatory one. So it is just a when you read out, it takes around 5 minutes. So this is just for completion's sake, I have given this diagnostic formulation. You can as well do all these things. So that is how you present a case conference with all the details, and then the case will be open for discussion. So usually sometimes, the case as on when required, the discussion will be there. Like when you are presenting the phenomenology itself, some any doubts are there. So people, the members start discussing about that. And sometimes at the management level, treatment part, they may discuss like that. In between also, there can be a discussion. So what to focus? When it is a first year, when a resident is a first year resident or a second year one or a third year one, what exactly you need to focus? So first year students usually, their internal experiences are reflected a lot in taking the clinical data or in their clinical, when they are maintaining functioning in a clinical. So first year students, so they should concentrate more on the clinical data, how to gather and how to formulate a case. So these students always require a supervision. So first year students, usually they will be the members and they will be usually the audience. Only second year and third years usually they present the case conferences. So second year students, they get the opportunity to analyze the problems, and they become more mature in that, and they form students individual case material. They can evaluate and articulate the points of view about clinical work, and the emphasis on analyzing the problems. And the second year should also be emphasized on the relationship issues with the other team members, and they can have an individual case work has to be done in the second year. And the more mature and complex understanding of the clinical material you get in the second year. So the increasingly sophisticated case formulations are expected from a second year student, and they have to use their best of their supervision, like their senior faculty. And come to third year, almost all the academic and clinical work put together, it reflects in their case presentation and while making the case conference, and the consolidation of their identities in multiple roles is expected in the third year. So finally, the most important thing. So people are afraid of case conferences. Always there are many times they say case conferences fail. Why the case conferences fail? So most often it is due to members having complicated ideas, and sometimes the discussion is deviated to something else with these kind of complicated ideas. And as a presenter, managing their own self, not only the presenter, the other group members also, the preparedness and the anxiety, and sometimes when the personal relation, if it is bad, these are all reflected in case conferences. And superficial contact. That means, so just seeing the case in that particular time, some may give the diagnosis or opinion about the case. So people say that the statistical logic is not good in this. So it's more of a probable logic. So while discussing it is an individual case which is discussed, and finally you come to a conclusion about diagnosis. So the statistical logic is not really reflected here. It is more probability and more of a patient-based. So some people have a habit of questioning everything, and it is not the aim of the group conference. The aim is to discuss about and then share the knowledge and enlighten each and every person about regarding this. It is not that to make down or let them down. So the group dynamics plays a lot of role in case conferences. So they describe like there are different groups. There will be a fighting group. Always this kind of group, they just put some irrational questions or complicated. That's what I told, like complicated ideas are put. And some will be a dependent group, like whatever the chair or the chairperson tells, they say yes. And some are like a pairing group will be there, where the speaker and only two people will be communicating, on rest of the conference, rest of the staff will keep quiet. So these are not invited actually. So that kind of active silence should be avoided. Each and every participant should participate in a case conference. Then only it becomes a success. And the presenter is successful when they present the details and let the discussion go well with their stimulating presentation. So for a successful case conference, so there are particularly certain strategies which we can have, like set up a day and time and take adequate time for the preparation. Like go ahead, like you are presenting a case, you may take for 15 days time or something like that. And the decision makers, the senior faculty members should always be there. And there's no use in discussing with only junior members or the students themselves. So the senior faculty should be there, and they should develop a protocol. There should be certain norms for conducting a conference, and selection which case has to be presented. So usually difficult case or an interesting case should be there. Without a simple routine case, there is nothing to discuss about. So a tough case, any problem with the diagnosis or a problem with the management or a problem with some phenomenology, whether it's these kind of things you have to keep in mind. And so all attendees are allowed to share their perspectives. That should be there, and avoid side discussions. And there should be a climate of respect. You should avoid that blame game, and confidentiality has to be maintained, and prioritize the concerns and put the aim and focus on the goals and the actions to achieve those goals. So ultimate goal is that, and the timeline. So you need to finish it off in the unnecessary discussions. The timelines will not be follow-up will not be there. So, and follow-up discussions and review procedures are also should be made. So continue monitor the progress and contingency plans. And then for any case conference which you present, later on also you need to review the case, and then there should be a follow-up plans and follow-up meetings also regarding that. So the take-home message is, for a student, it is the most important teaching and learning activity in a clinical setting. And for the patient, definitely when they are taken for a case conference, for a patient, that is for their treatment and all, it is very much useful. So, and group dynamics can result in very little work being done in terms of solving the case difficulties. So a word about group dynamics, everybody should have in their mind, and how the communication has to be and how the relationship has to be maintained, and that the chairperson has to maintain the exact group dynamics. And I found this Paul Mills paper. It is was in 1973. So the title itself is like why I do not attend case conferences. So the main reason I rarely show up at case conferences is easily stated, so low that I find them boring and also sometimes offensive. So, but it was in 1973. Why? Because this case conferences concept has come from general hospital psychiatry. Earlier it was not there. So maybe because the discussion is not to that level, and the psychiatry was at a growing stage and that level in the 70s. But now case conferences definitely help the student in enriching their knowledge and also sharing their views and taking up the suggestions from other members. So thank you very much for this. And I thank the upskill team also for giving me this opportunity. So any questions from the students are invited.
Thank you, madam, for informative lecture. So I would like to invite participant to ask question in chat box or just raise your hand. I will just unmute yourself and you can just go ahead with the directly asking to the speaker, madam. Madam, we have received one question somewhat related to actually inside the case conference. Question is from Abhishek Kumar. Respected madam, I have a doubt. What is the significance of a differential diagnosis? If proper diagnosis is being made, then what is the need of differential diagnosis?
Differential diagnosis, when you are pakka with your diagnosis, usually we don't discuss that in case conferences when it is such easy case. Usually what we discuss is a difficult case. And differential diagnosis, and one more thing is like differential diagnosis, always you should keep in mind certain differential diagnosis. Though you cannot say it as a straight away case, what are the other possibilities that can be there? That kind of thinking should always be there. You can just not jump into one diagnosis. So that is always required. When you have the clear-cut clarity in your thinking and clarity in the phenomenology and other things, then definitely we can have a single diagnosis. And in psychiatry particularly, so the first diagnosis, after some time it will change like. So when you are following up a case for a while, so the first episode psychosis, for example. So you diagnose it as schizophrenia in the first episode and later on it may turn into a bipolar or a schizoaffective. So keeping all those in mind, so we may have to have a differential diagnosis to raise the discussion. Yes?
Not received any question, just comment from Mr. Suresh Kumar. Excellent talk, madam. One can raise hand in the just Zoom and I will just unmute whosoever and they can ask directly. I guess madam, your lecture was sufficient enough to provide all information. Otherwise, we used to have questions 10 to 15 on an average.
Okay.
Chindan, if there are no questions, I think we can call
yes,
it because there is no point in waiting.
Yes, I was about to say the same thing. So I again would like to thank, yes, one question, madam, from Ragini Singhania. Is there anything called definitive diagnosis in psychiatry?
Yeah, it's there. Why not? definitive diagnosis can be there with for all a group of disorders. There you can have a definite diagnosis. It's not that always the diagnosis is confusing. Only for certain cases you'll have that. So a schizophrenia can be a definite diagnosis, a bipolar or depression, especially depression, clear-cut depression you can see. Now in the COVID pandemics, you can see anxiety disorders, depressions, a clear-cut definition. Whatever you see in the textbooks, you'll have that in the criteria you can see in patients. There's nothing like always psychiatry is indefinite. You have definite diagnosis.
Anyone would like? Yes, madam. Again, one question is there from Colin B. What would constitute a good psychodynamic formulation for a case conference, as different members of the MDT would have different perception of what is important? Dr. Colin Goa.
Yes, that's the reason we call it as psychodynamic. So dynamic means it's not like at one point it ends. So it's a process sort of thing. That's the reason we call it as a psychodynamic formulation. So what are the points that are important in from the childhood? We will be collecting all that, So what are the influences from the childhood? What are the genetic influences? What are the present things? What are the defenses he is using? Is there any primary, secondary gain? Like that, all the things we will be noting. So that is the reason we call it as a dynamic one. It is not a static one. So especially almost all the psychiatry conditions, you can see this flow like thing, right? So as a psychotic coming to you at a later day with some stressor. So with that stressor, there is some exacerbation of the symptoms like that. So that dynamics has to be almost defined while treating the patient. So that is the reason you require a multi-therapeutic team approach.
Thank you, madam. So one more question again from Abhishek Kumar. We make rapport with the patient by making him or her comfortable while taking history, but we confront all their details in front of everyone. Is this good, madam?
In case conference, you mean? So that's the reason I have put a question also in between, like whether the patient is there present in the case conference. So it's not always like you will not ask the patient to sit there. So while discussion, when it is required for examination only, we will be asking the patient to come and we'll some other staff who want to interview him, they will be interviewing him. So we will not, that is not called as confrontation actually. So we are helping the patient and you need to develop that kind of rapport and therapeutic alliance at the first sight so that the patient believes in you. So the patient believes that we are helping him out. And even before the case conference, we need to explain the patient that, so we are discussing elaboratively regarding your case, why you are not improving or what is the drug we need to give you, or there is a problem with it. Everything you can discuss and you can tell the patient. Then only you will gain the confidence of the patient.
Thank you,
madam. Many times in institutes, when the PG is following the patient and we have that experience, like when they come for follow-up, they want the same doctor to see the patient. So even if the professor is seeing them, they don't want it. They will be asking for that particular student, especially when that case is discussed elaboratively and when this presenter or student sits with them for so many hours. So they develop that kind of rapport and then they want to continue that treatment with the same person.
Thank you, madam. One more question.
It's not audible. Yes. No.
That form I have made it respondable. Like I think there was some setting issue. I have activated the feedback form. People can click that now.
It's not audible. Chintan.
Yes, actually, I lost the connection in between. So, Dr. Saul, you are host now. So, madam, the last question I was telling how to manage the situation when the patient changes his or her version in front of the chairperson. Question by Dr. Umehani.
Yeah, this is quite common, you know. So the version with the student will be different, and when they talk to the senior faculty, the version changes. It might be the way the interview is held, maybe because of the experience of the senior faculty, they could catch the correct information or the phenomenology. And you need not get, there is nothing wrong in that, and you accept that and you try to improve the interview skills. And sometimes even from the patient side, so when they are talking to a senior member, definitely they will be giving more information. And so it happens, many times it happens, and the case conference will be blocked at that level, like the people start discussing on that, and usually it ends up there without any further discussion also. So you try to interview once again and confirm all the things. So that is always required.
Thank you, madam. Again, one more question from Dr. Suhas from Mysore. He is first year resident. Should we include substance use disorder in the diagnosis, even though it's not adding to phenomenology? Should we describe it in detail in all cases?
Yes, if there is substance abuse, that has to be mentioned and discussed, and how many, say for example, if it is smoking, so how many cigarettes per day he is smoking? Is it a habitual one, or it is only at an abuse level, or it may lead to dependency? These kind of things can be mentioned. We have to discuss all those things, and it comes under access also. And for a clear-cut, detailed presentation, also this you have to discuss about and take the details of it. Most often, especially for psychotics, there will be some dependency or abuse potential will be there. And depending on their personality, sometimes some people may have that potential or the future this thing. So you better mention all those things.
Fine, thank you, madam. Again, one more question by Ragini. If the history is not reliable, like the patient is changing verbatims regarding certain symptomatology in each setting, can we come to a provisional diagnosis from it?
Yeah, definitely. When the patient, if it is not reliable, that you have to mention there itself, and you may, before presenting a case conference, it is not the one single interview you'll be doing. So multiple times you will be confirming those whatever phenomenology you want to you have seen in that patient. is one thing. And secondly, if the patient has that changing sort of thing, better you confirm that. And if the reliability is not there from the patient or from the attendant family member, that also you need to mention. So there are certain things for discussing the reliability, whether the attender is a close family member or not, whether they are staying with the patient or not. All these things will count. And coming to the phenomenology, one MSc part. So that MSc, you can have a serial MSc. It's like you can take it for 2 to 3 days. Every day you can have a MSc sort of thing. But single MSc also we don't usually do in the case conferences.
So no more question, madam, now.
Chintan, I think
So
there are two questions that came when I was the host. I don't know whether it reached you. One is from Dr. Surabhi Surendran. The question is, if a patient is already diagnosed and is being treated, can we mention his diagnosis in the presentation? I think this is one question that...
Yeah, of course. So if already it is diagnosed in the past history, you will be past treatment history and past history, you will be mentioning about the diagnosis. In the summary, you will be mentioning about the symptoms. When it comes to formulation, you will be giving straight away the diagnosis.
Another question from Dr. Sumedha Kota. Is it necessary to mention no history of organicity or substance dependence in diagnostic formulation for like every case? Because it is usually said that diagnostic formulation should include only positive point towards diagnosis, because organicity and substance need to be ruled out in all cases.
But even this has to be mentioned, like if he doesn't have anything, that also has to be mentioned. Certain negative things which are not in favor of the diagnosis, you can also mention such things in formulation. It's not like only positive things you say. So negative history, all the negative history you need not mention, like there is no history of fever, no seizures, something like that. But the negative history pertaining to this kind of things, you can definitely mention.
Okay.
Because these it can influence the diagnosis at a later date, like substance abuse and all.
Fine. I cannot see any more question. Is there any, Saul bhai?
No, these are the ones. There is another question, but it was not clear to me what exactly. So that I think that is all.
Fine. So we are going to conclude the session now. Thank you, madam, for excellent lecture. And it was very informative. And I would like to also thank Dr. Pulkit for introduction of the speaker. And thank you, my team member, Dr. Saul Amin, chairperson and co-chair our Dr. Roop Jyoti. So expecting our next session on Tuesday with more enthusiasm. See you all again. Have a good time. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.